Hey guys, I'm Prodigy from Airsoft Team Kilo23. Today this is not going to be an Airsoft review, comparison, modification video, or anything like that. I'm basically going to talk about a story that aired on King 5 just a day or two ago as of the filming of this video. Now the gist of the story is that the ATF is banning most gas blowback M4s because they can be supposedly modified to take real steel upper receivers and therefore be converted into real automatic weapons. Yeah. I don't think so, guys. Maybe, possibly, but the ATF has not provided proof. Now, check this video out for yourself.
The most watched news in Western Washington. King 5 News at 10:30 starts now.
Is it a toy or a dangerous weapon? The King 5 investigators have obtained government documents in which investigators declare a popular type of toy a firearm.
But there is a strange secrecy in the air when it comes to informing the public about this potential threat. King 5 investigator Chris Engel shows you how it started when agents seized a shipment of toys in Tacoma.
If you're a parent of kids this age, you probably know what Airsoft is. It's the wildly popular sport
You can play Capture the Flag. Yeah!
in which air or gas-powered guns fire plastic BBs.
The way you tell that it's not real is the orange tip.
Now this report was done by Chris Engels. Chris, if you're ever watching this, do me a favor and do a little more research into your stories before you actually post them. Yeah, dude, you got a lot of gaps and holes and things that I can punch holes in here. It's just not credible at all. Now, the video starts out, as you just saw, with kids playing with low-powered electric guns and springers. This is like entry-level airsoft. This is not what professional players like me do. I mean, I started out on these things 7 or 8 years ago. That was a long time ago. But a lot of airsoft players do not consider springers low-powered electric guns. They don't consider that airsoft. I personally hardly consider that airsoft. Sure, they fire airsoft rounds, but it's not the sport of airsoft. The sport of airsoft is using guns like this. Now, in addition to that, the kid in the video claims that the only way to tell a real gun apart from an airsoft gun is the orange tip. Not true. Most airsoft players, including most of the professional ones, will take off the orange tip because they do not take their guns out in public. They're smarter than that. I mean, you take your gun out in public, you should expect to be shot, seriously. So that's why professional airsoft players actually, they conceal their weapons, they don't take them out in public, and whenever they do take them out, it's on a field, it's way out in the middle of nowhere, or else it's at like someplace like Tacoma Tactical, where it's a legal range that people can pay and play at. Now that's where orange tips do not come into play.
But now, orange tip or not, federal agents say some of these replicas have crossed the line from make-believe to the real thing. King 5 obtained this Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms internal memo under the Freedom of Information Act. ATF says it evaluated several of these air guns and determined they are firearms, and some even machine guns, in the eyes of the law. The Bureau says thousands of air guns meeting that definition have been imported into the U.S.
Anybody that knows about guns and knows about BB guns or air guns, this is an asinine joke. Oh my gosh. I mean, where is this country going?
There was an outcry early last year on the internet and talk radio when ATF took its first public shots at airsoft. Critics demanded to know why the government was targeting toys. Records we obtained showed that even 3 United States senators wanted explanations from ATF after agents at the port of Tacoma seized this incoming shipment of airsoft guns.
Now, another really misleading step in this whole story is the fact that Chris Engels starts the story out with a bunch of kids playing what most of us would barely consider to be airsoft in backyards and stuff with a bunch of spring pistols. Then he totally skips over to these really insanely expensive guns that can cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's just really misleading. You talk about these $20 spring guns that you can get from Big 5, and you go straight over to these $1,000 guns. Like, where does that come from? That's two very different aspects of airsoft that should not be related like that in a story. It's completely misleading. Now, as you just saw, the news network and the reporter refer to these airsoft guns as toys. No, they're not toys. I mean, yeah, they fire little plastic balls, but do you consider a pellet gun to be a toy? No. Airsoft guns can cause extreme bodily damage, so they are not toys in the slightest. Sure, little mini-powered electric guns, those things that take like AA's, I'll consider those toys, yeah, because they can't hurt me if I just shoot my skin with it at 2 inches. But guns like these next to me, no, they will inflict extreme bodily harm if mishandled. Now, another point I wanted to touch on is the fact that gas blowback rifles are a really small portion of airsoft in the US. Now, they might be bigger overseas, I really don't know. But if you look at every bit of airsoft in the US, 98% of it, that's not a real number, I just made it up, is in fact AEG use. Now, a lot of sidearms are going to be gas guns, but the ATF is not confiscating pistols, they're confiscating GBB M4s or things that are similar to that.
The high-end, all-metal guns cost about $400 each. A variety of manufacturers produce these ultra-realistic airsoft toys. But could they actually fire bullets?
So we got this off the internet.
The owner of Wade's Eastside Guns,
Feel that.
an expert in AR-15 rifles, agreed to examine the same make and model replica AR-15 seized by ATF.
That looks like a real firearm. I mean, if somebody pointed this at me, I would shoot.
So the owner of Wade's gun shop did talk about if someone pointed one of these at him in public or elsewhere, he would shoot them. I don't blame him. It does look pretty realistic. However, most honorable airsoft players are not going to take these out in public and start pointing them at random people. That's not going to happen.
They have gone to a level of realism on this one that I have not seen before.
It's what's inside that Wade Gorin found most disturbing.
This actually looks like an auto sear out of a machine gun.
Internal parts that could allow someone to make a fully functioning lower receiver, the only part of the gun that requires a background check to buy.
In all firearms, the receiver is the registered or controlled part. And we could set in the real trigger parts inside of this with very little alteration, and you would get a weapon that would fire. If you buy this piece, you can make anything you see on that wall.
So, a converted airsoft receiver could be mounted onto many powerful real guns.
And even worse, it would be untraceable. This is the lower receiver on a real AR-15. It has a serial number and other markings that help law officers trace its history if used in a crime.
Investigators often use those numbers to link a gun to a suspect. Now, look at the airsoft receiver. It's unmarked and untraceable. While ATF sources and documents cannot point to one incident where an airsoft receiver was used in a crime, documents do list a half-dozen cases in which criminals paid top dollar for untraceable firearm receivers.
So you had a guy take a look at this, one of your gunsmiths?
Yeah.
Back at Wade's, we asked the gunsmith to try to fire live rounds from our airsoft. The result?
Kind of what we were trying to do was see how easy it would be for a kid or, some criminal with a drill and a file and some common tools to make it fire, and that just wasn't the case.
So you weren't able to make it fire that easily?
No.
In its labs, ATF says it did fire rounds from several converted airsoft guns, including one of the Tacoma guns.
And if the ATF was able to make this fire, I wouldn't dispute that.
While ATF has ruled that guns like this are firearms, it appears to still be stinging from the criticism. ATF refused to explain on camera what its ruling means to people who buy or possess these guns. The public records we received are heavily censored. Even those marked media plan are blacked out. When it comes to airsoft, America's gun police are decidedly gun shy. Chris Ingalls, King 5 News.
Now, another really aggravating thing in the story is the fact that the ATF has no record of a converted airsoft gun being used in a crime. However, they have half a dozen, or I can assume 6 records of criminals paying top dollar for untraceable lower receivers. That does not mean airsoft lower receivers, it just means untraceable lower receivers. So that could mean a lot of things that doesn't necessarily related to airsoft itself. So another hole I can punch in your story, Chris, is that you had a WeTech M4 gas blowback rifle, when, as far as I know, the ATF seized Western Arms gas blowback rifles, 2 different companies, 2 very different designs. Now that might be why you could not modify the lower receiver, I don't know. So if the gunsmith in a shop that's well renowned couldn't modify it, then how could the ATF? I'm really confused there. Now here's another thing that's just really kind of creepy. The ATF does not offer any proof that these things can be converted apart from their word. Now every document that shows that an airsoft gun could be converted has been censored so heavily that you can't make sense of it. Now even though King 5's story is a little misleading, they are kind of correct in my opinion. The ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, is gun shy. They have insufficient proof to claim that airsoft guns, even these small, few specific guns, can be converted into real firearms. So to sum this whole section up on Wade's shop here, his tech was unable to get the WeTech M4 to fire live rounds. So how can the common person do it? I'm extremely confused there. What? Really? ATF, come on. Now, even after all that, I do have a little bit of good news. Any of you that have heard of Spartan Imports, they are the maker of Javelin, the newer airsoft company on the market. Now, they're working with the ATF, from what I've heard, to create a higher-end, non-convertible by the ATF standards, gas blowback Series M4, and it won't be regulated by the ATF. So after watching all this, you can really punch a lot of holes in King 5's little story here. So I'm not sure who to believe here. I'm sure the ATF maybe was able to get it to fire live rounds, I really don't know. But the point is they cannot offer sufficient proof. And also King 5's story is full of holes, so it really doesn't help the matter at all. I'll let you guys decide and make up your own opinion. I'm Prodigy from Airsoft Team Kilo23, signing off.